Good afternoon, everyone. It's September 26, 2024, and you are tuned in to the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting in Chatham, Mass. Pursuant to Governor Healey's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who'd like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 571-772-973#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link that's provided in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. The meetings are run as follows. We take a roll call of all board members, ask if any citizens or non-board members participating in the call via the phone or online give our last 4 digits of their telephone number for identification purposes. The hearing notice is read by staff, Sarah Clark on my right. You or your representative will present your application. Anyone in favor of the appeal or application may speak for up to 5 minutes, and there'll be a clock. Then I will read any and all correspondence. After that, we'll ask if there's anybody that would like to ask a question or talk against the application. And then we will have questions from the board. The applicant may rebut any testimony that they've heard from questions from other people. Board members will ask questions, we'll close the hearing, deliberate, and then usually we vote on the applications. All votes are taken by roll call, and at the end of the meeting, we'll close via verbal confirmation and note the time of adjournment. So we start the meeting with a roll call of all board members. We have 8 members. Everybody's here today. We have 3 associates and 5 full members. You need a 4 out of 5 vote to prevail under the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Voting today will be the full members, which is Dave Veach, David Nixon, myself, Paul Semple, and Virginia Fenwick. So now we'll go through a roll call just to verify that you approve of this type of meeting, starting with David Veach.
David H. Veach, and I approve.
Ed Acton, I approve.
David S. Nixon, I approve.
Paul C. Semple, I approve.
Lee Hovey, I approve.
Steve DeBoer approves.
Virginia Fenwick, I approve.
And I approve as well. I think the first on the agenda today would be a motion by Paul Semple, if he would, about the meeting held on August 22nd.
Yes, I'll move to approve the minutes as drafted for the meeting on August 22nd, 2024.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
David Nixon?
I vote yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. All right. Well, the first 2 applications are going to be requests for withdrawals, starting with application 24-106, 789. Wait a minute. I'm so. What am I looking at? I'm looking at the wrong agenda. Let me look at yours. Okay, 24-095. Go ahead, Sarah.
Application number 24-095, Fitz Family Trust, care of Cindy Fitz, 951 Enchanted Oaks Drive, Driftwood, Texas, 78619. Owners of property located at 208 Cedar Street, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessors Map 13C, Block 16, Lot 1. The applicant seeks a dimensional variance from the required setback for exterior mechanical system appliances. The applicant proposes to install 2 AC condensers 15 feet from the westerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The property contains 16,200 square feet within the R40 zoning district. A dimensional variance is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10, and Section 8D2C of the Chatham Protective Bylaw.
Who is here on that? Yes, please. Cindy Fitz. Cindy Fitz, I
Hi,
presume?
yes, I'm Cindy Fitz. Thank you very much. I'm here to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Paul?
I'll move to grant the requested withdrawal without prejudice.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
Paul?
Paul votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. Very, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. See you next month.
See you next time. Okay. Yep. The next one we have is 24-097, 177 Countryside Drive, Michael Ford Esquire, but Sarah will first read the application.
Application number 24-097, Robert Fuller and Natalie Coleman Fuller, care of Michael D. Ford Esquire, P.O. Box 485, West Harwich, Mass. 02671. Owners of property located at 177 Countryside Drive, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 6I, Block 15, Lot N14. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the construction of a partial second-floor addition and covered porch. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located 32.4 feet from the road, 4 feet from the Coastal Conservancy District, and 16.4 feet from the easterly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The proposed partial second-floor addition will be nonconforming in that it will be located 30 feet from the Coastal Conservancy District where a 50-foot setback is required. The proposed covered porch will be nonconforming in that it will be located 25.9 feet from the road where a 40-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 1,959 square feet, 12.6%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,075 square feet, 13.4%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 15,537 square feet of buildable upland where 20,000 square feet is required, and contains 27,085 square feet of land area where 60,000 square feet is required in the R60 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Welcome, Attorney Ford.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to appear remotely. As indicated in my letter to the board dated September 19th, we were contacted on the 19th by our clients indicating that they had made a decision to rethink their plans and asked us to file a request for withdrawal without prejudice of this pending application.
Is that a motion?
That's a request. I think
Yeah,
the board has
okay.
to make.
Oh, there you go. Thank you for that. You would know.
I will move to grant the requested withdrawal without prejudice.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
Well,
All votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
as do I. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Madam
coming.
Chair.
All right. All right, next up is 789 Fox Hill Road, Robert and Elizabeth Champanelli, 24-106. Sarah?
Application number 24-106, Robert and Elizabeth Campanelli, 9 Worcester Lane, Waltham, Mass. 02451. Owners of property located at 789 Fox Hill Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 6C, Block 50, Lot J10. The applicant seeks to modify special permit number 24-041 granted on May 9th, 2024, which allowed for the construction of a deck. The applicant now seeks to modify this special permit to allow for the deck to be located 25 feet from the road where a 40-foot setback is required. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 29,148 square feet where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the board letting me be remote, as I am one of those individuals that is sick. So I am coming to you from my desk. And we're seeking to have this modification to our special permit because in completing of the deck. The actual deck, as in the as-built, is literally 25 feet from the road rather than 25.2 feet from the road, which was the original special permit request. Hindsight being 2020, we probably should have just gone with 25 feet rather than being so precise. In reviewing the criteria as outlined in section BB, in terms of adequacy, it seems to not have any additional impact. In terms of compatibility with the neighborhood, no additional impact. In terms of no non-conforming, I think we're still within, the general realms of reasonableness when we're talking about 2.4 inches. From a suitability standpoint, I think it is actually, and it continues to remain an improvement to the neighborhood. I will defer to the board if there's any of the other criteria from 5 through 12 that they think are important and relevant. And so I would request consideration for an amendment to our special permit from 25.2 to a 25-foot setback.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate. Seeing none, I will read the correspondences, and we have none. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please make it known. And seeing none, questions from the board? I'm just going to do this plenary. Are there any? No. Good. Paul?
I will move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, deliberations. Dave Veach?
Well, I know there's no such thing as de minimis in considering the plans, et cetera, apparently. Anyway, no, I don't see this 2.4 inches close to the road as being substantially more detrimental in any way, shape, or form. If it had been presented as 25 feet initially, I wouldn't have had no concerns, so I will be supporting it.
Very good. Ed?
No questions.
No, it's deliberations. Do you agree with Dave Veach?
I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, I don't agree, but I will not vote no.
Very good. Paul?
I agree with Mr. Veach.
Lee?
Yeah, I don't see any problem with this.
I don't have
Steve?
any issues.
Jenny?
I would have approved 25 initially, and I remember someone very astute one time, or actually our chairwoman, saying that that's the criteria that you look at when you are evaluating these
Okay, very good.
comebacks, so I would approve.
And that's, I thought you said that, but anyway, I agree with it. No matter who said it, it's true fact, in my opinion. So, Paul?
I'll move to grant the requested relief as requested.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
I vote yes.
Paul?
Paul votes yes.
And Ginny?
Yes.
As do I. It's unanimous, successful. We hope you feel better.
Thank you. I appreciate the board's time.
You're welcome. All right. Moving along to the fourth application today is 24-096, 84 Ridgeville Road, John Timmerman, when Sarah's ready.
Application number 24-096, John Timmerman, P.O. Box 920405, Needham, Mass. 02492, owner of property located at 84 Ridgevale Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 6D, Block 2V, Lot 28. The applicant seeks to construct a detached garage with habitable space above on a non-conforming lot. The existing dwelling and proposed detached accessory structure comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,058 square feet, 6.7%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,898 square feet, 12.1%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 15,794 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Okay. Yes, please make your way to the mic and state your case.
Hi, thank you. I desire to build this garage with space.
Could you just state your name for the record,
I'm
please?
sorry,
That's
John
okay.
Timmerman, the owner of 84 Ridgeville
Oh,
Road.
great, go ahead.
I desire to build this garage to, obviously for vehicles, 2 vehicles, but space above to be used for storage, exercise area, maybe a treadmill or something, as well as some office space. The existing house that I'm in is a cottage, basically. I don't want to make any changes to that. I love it as it is, but it's small. No room for those other things that I mentioned.
Okay, do you have a copy of the criteria, or do you want me to help you with that? Yeah, there's actually 12 criteria that allegedly you're supposed to go through to be able to get this granted. Would you say that you have an adequate size site for?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I know that it's non-conforming, thank you, in that it's under 20,000 square feet. I'm aware of the frontage issue. I'm shy of that by 3 feet, I believe.
And you think this is compatible with neighboring properties, would you say?
Absolutely, yes. There's been some new construction in the neighborhood, and it would fit in nicely with what's going on there.
And the extent of the proposed, is there any increase in non-conforming nature in your application that you know of?
No,
No, very good. And you think the site is suitable?
yes,
Doesn't impact the natural environment,
No.
slopes, vegetation, wetlands, groundwater, any of that?
none
No.
of the above.
No? And what about the visual character? How do you think it's going to look?
I think it'll look great. I intentionally wanted it in the back corner of the lot, as far back and as far over as it will go. I think the plan actually calls for it for the 16 feet off instead of 15, and that's by design as well. But set off the road to that point, it would be a nice complement to the property in the existing neighborhood.
And you see it as compatible with neighboring uses?
Absolutely, yes.
And it won't be an issue with noise, litter, traffic flow,
No,
utilities?
not at all.
And, okay, sounds good. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate. Seeing none, I will read the correspondences. There are 3. Judith Giorgio, our health agent, writes on 9/24/24 that she reviewed the plan about the detached garage with space, home office, loft above the property. The proposed garage is located where the existing septic system is currently located. A new system must be approved and constructed. The space over the garage will not be approved as a bedroom. A deed restriction may be required prior to the issuance of the new septic system permit. And then we have a note from Ronald York, September 24th, 2024. I am responding to your letter dated September 5th, 2024. My wife and I live at 11 Eileen, across the road on Ridgevale. I have no objections to Mr. Timmerman's proposed structure on his property. That must have been the notice to all abutters, because,
Yes, I did take the occasion to speak with the abutters.
yeah, okay.
Most of them anyhow.
Yeah, great, great. And then we also have one more note from 94 Ridgeville Road, Catherine and John Strizzi. They are in support of the work Mr. Timmerman would like to do at 84 Ridgeville Road. That concludes our correspondences. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? Seeing none. Questions from the board? Ginny?
Yes, Mr. Timmerman, I have a question about the height that you're proposing. On the site plan, we calculate height by the average grade plane minus the proposed ridge. And when I look at that, it's 27.5. But the application looks like it's 28.6. Could you confirm which one it is?
I believe it's 28.6 because I did increase the height of the garage door. Ideally, at some point, I'd like to keep a boat in there, and I believe that's the differential.
Okay.
Steve? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, one more question. Do you know what the height of your current house is? The height of your house?
That I do not, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
All right, Steve?
I have two questions, two quick questions. The only, or verification, the only utilities that are gonna be run to the garage are electricity and water.
That's
You're
correct.
gonna have a slop sink there or something?
Yes.
Okay. The driveway appears to be new, leading back to the garage.
Yes.
I see there's a shell parking area on the front of the property. Is that gonna be removed?
No, it wouldn't be. I have no intention to
Okay,
remove
well,
that.
You're aware that it's encroaching on your neighbors?
Yes, that, we've had a couple conversations
okay,
about
they're
that,
okay with that?
amicable, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Those neighbors happen to be John and Kathy Strizzi, who
Oh,
wrote a
okay.
letter in support.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, all right, that's it, thank you.
thank you.
Hey, Lee?
No other questions?
Paul, questions?
No questions.
David Nixon, questions?
Just on the utilities, specifically, what are you going to have in there?
Specifically, I'm sorry?
Yeah, specifically, what are you going to have in there? Like a toilet and a sink and?
Yes, half a bath. I'd like a slop sink on the first floor, in the garage itself. And above, again, where I would ideally want an office and a little bit of storage, I'd like to have a half bath there.
Will you have a shower in there?
No,
Thank you.
Ed, questions?
No questions.
And I have no questions.
I think your house might be 57.8 based on the plan that we have, which is just a little bit shorter than, is that right?
That's, 5070 is the top of foundation elevation.
And then the top of foundation elevation that's applied for is just a little taller. So it just looks a little bit taller than the house. Does that sound right?
No, so the height of the house would be average grade up to the ridge elevation. The top of foundation is where the sill meets the concrete at the ground level.
I was just trying to get an estimate of the house, just to get that other question answered. But that's okay, sorry, I messed that up. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Davey seconds and votes yes.
Yes.
And
All
Paul?
votes yes?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, deliberations. Steve?
I think it's a nice project, and if it's, sort of preserving the house the way it's not affecting the house.
correct,
which,
not affecting.
then I think it's fine. I have no issues.
Ginny?
Yeah, I originally thought it might be a little tall, but I understand the purpose, what you want to use it for, it makes sense. Being taller than the house, but what I like about it is that it's situated kind of behind the house. If it was right next to the house, I don't think it would almost be bigger than the house. So I like the way you have switched the driveway and that you've jogged it to the left.
Yes.
So you see just really like half of the garage, a piece of the garage.
That was my thought. Had I
Yeah.
put it on the other side of the lot, and I'm not familiar, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the street and those two particular cottages, Original Meadows Cottages, I think they're
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
I didn't want to put it closer to Kathy and John Strizzi's. It would just be, so I felt that was the best spot for it.
I think you cited it very well. So anyway, those are my comments.
I agree. I think it's a nice project. I like the relocation of the driveway. I think it fits in there really nicely, meets our criteria. So I'm not voting, but I definitely would approve it.
Thank you.
And Paul?
Yeah, you've got a wide open lot there. It's a good spot for it. I see no problems with it by our criteria.
And Dave Nixon?
I agree with what Jenny said about the concern initially, particularly when it wasn't staked when we first went out there, is, oh boy, I hope this isn't going to go right next to the house, because it wouldn't work,
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it seems to work.
Thank you.
Very good. Ed?
Yeah, I believe it meets our criteria, and certainly it won't be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood, so I would get my vote.
Yeah, I agree with all previous, and I agree about the siding of it, and, it is taller than the house, but I think I applaud the efforts to preserve the house. I mean, because it sits there next to another one that you can tell they're former cottages, and that there's a value in that. And so I think he came up with a very good way to achieve what he was looking for in a way that fits in the neighborhood quite well. So I will be supporting it, yeah.
Okay, so I agree. I also support it. I guess it is going to, when you think about it, it's going to be substantially taller than the house because it's just a small cape. But I've heard it said that large garages are kind of funky and then they can look really nice. So I'm going to go ahead also and support it. Paul?
May I ask you what your thought about when you're going to do construction here?
Oh, the timing. Well, I was waiting for how this goes, and then I have to deal with the septic, and everybody is backlogged, right? So ideally, I would like to start in the spring. That's
Okay. Well, I think that probably, given the neighborhood, we should do our standard conditions, which would be that all construction activity and vehicles would be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner, that between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction would be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
I understand that. And full disclosure, I've known one of my neighbors almost my entire life, and the others have become like family, and an abutter directly behind me has known me my entire life. Oddly enough, I moved down here part-time from Needham, and hence there are like 50 people in the neighborhood from Needham, so I can't get away from Needham. But I've known all these people, and I'm extremely sensitive to those conditions.
Okay.
And not
Great.
infringing on anybody's enjoyment of their homes.
Do you think the people in your neighborhood would like to have those restrictions, or do you think you don't need them? I'm just curious.
Oh, that's something I would probably insist upon anyhow,
You would? Okay, I just
truthfully.
wanted to make
Yes,
sure.
just out of consideration
Yeah.
for everyone.
The reason why I say that is because there were two houses that are very large, right, basically next to you.
Yes.
And they didn't have to come here, so they didn't have any specific restrictions. And I'm
Right.
kind of sensitive to that
Yes.
fact. So
Yes.
I wanted to see what you thought of that.
Yeah, I went through that when they were building the house directly next door to me. and
Right.
I'm a kind of a blue-collar guy anyway, so I'm a little more patient with that stuff. However, I even spoke at length with one of my neighbors about putting up a snow fence or something so stuff's not blowing over into their yard. So I'm aware of all those things, and
Okay.
that would be my main concern.
Okay. Paul, did you make the motion already? You did?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and
Those conditions.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
And Dave Nixon?
I vote yes.
And Paul?
All votes
And
yes?
Ginny?
I vote yes.
As do I. Thank you very much. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, good luck.
Thank you.
Next, we have 24-098, Rebecca Fuller, care of Thomas Moore, 47 Crosby Lane.
Application number 24-098, Rebecca Fuller, care of Thomas A. Moore, P.O. Box 2124, Brewster, Mass. 02631. Owner of property located at 47 Crosby Lane, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 8E, Block 15, Lot 9. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling and conforming detached garage. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located 5.8 feet from the westerly abutter. The proposed dwelling will be nonconforming in that it will be located 9.3 feet from the westerly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 1,008 square feet, 6.8%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,960 square feet, 13.2%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 14,881 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thomas Moore from Thomas Moore Design Company, representing Rebecca Fuller, who's here in the audience. And we're looking to get a special permit to raise and replace the existing house at 47 Crosby Lane. If you had a chance to go out to take a look at the house, it's in pretty much disrepair and has been for a number of years now, so it's time for the existing house to go. And that existing house is, pre-existing non-conforming for a couple reasons. One, because of the size of the lot, which Sarah mentioned. Also, the left side setback is 5.8 feet, where 15 feet is required. The house itself, the new house and detached garage, we feel it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure, because we're, one, improving the setback on the left side from the 5.8 feet to 9.3 feet. The house that we're trying to put up there and the garage are Cape-style properties, which fit well, I think, with that particular neighborhood over there. In addressing the criteria for the special permit, the new house and the detached garage will be under the 15% lot coverage requirement. The proposed lot coverage will be 13.2%. And also, there'll, as previously stated, there'll be an improvement on the left side setback. The front, right side, and rear setbacks will conform in both the house and the garage itself. The garage completely conforms. As far as compatibility of the proposed structures with neighboring properties, the area is a neighborhood of single-family dwellings. The proposed structures are Cape-style structures, and this will fit right in well with the neighboring structures. The use does not change. It does conform to the current bylaw. As far as suitability of the site, the proposed house and garage will not have any effect on neighboring properties, the natural environment, vegetation, wetlands, groundwater, water bodies, and all storm water runoff will be contained on the site. As far as impact of scale and siting, the proposed house and detached garage will not affect the visual character of the neighborhood. It does not affect any views or vistas. As far as compatibility with of the proposed use, well, again, the property is a single-family home in an area of single-family homes. There'll be no change in use. There will be a new Title V septic system for 3 bedrooms, and the house will be connected to town water, and drainage will be controlled again by gutters and downspouts on site. The proposed new house and detached garage will not impact any traffic flow or safety. There will be the proposed house and garage will not create any noise, litter. The new house and detached garage will not affect any utilities or public services. And there'll be no visual impact on the neighborhood or the neighboring uses. And this house is not in a flood zone. So you can see the pictures of what we're trying to put there. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about what we're trying to do.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please indicate. Seeing none, I will read the correspondences. There are 3. First, from Christina Bassett from the Historic Commission. They wrote to us yesterday, September 24th, 2024. The home has been found to not be historically significant. Thus, they did not impose a demolition delay. Then we have a note from Judith Giorgio, our health agent, also received yesterday, 9/24/24. I have received the proposed plan for this property. The health department has issued a septic system permit for the proposed 3-bedroom dwelling. No living space is approved for above the garage. Then lastly, we have a note from Tom Dutton, who is the, quote, westerly abutter. He says on September 22nd, 2024, it says 2014, but I'm going to go out on a limb, say that was a typo. The existing house at 47 Crosby is 5.8 feet from my property line, and the new house will be 9.3 feet from the line. Sounds like an improvement to me. I'm all for it. I say grant the special permit. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? Seeing none, questions from the board? Lee?
No, I don't think I have any questions. I was happy to hear that the space above the garage was not going to be for any living situation.
That's
And then I don't
correct.
see any utilities going to that garage?
I believe only electric.
Electric, yeah, okay, thank you.
Paul, questions?
I have no questions.
Steve?
Can you, I think I know the reason, but can you just explain why the garage is detached rather than attached to the house?
You can tell it's a pretty tight lot.
Yes.
So there was no real way to attach that garage to the house and try to get in it.
And to have a turnaround area?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I understand. That was what I thought. Thank you.
Dave Nixon, questions?
Yeah, the cupola bothers me. I just don't see it in that neighborhood. Not at all.
In a note that we're actually going to remove the cupola from the garage, so, that you won't have to worry about seeing the cupola there, so.
And you won't leave it on my front door, right? Okay, thank you.
Sounds like The Godfather. Really. Ed Akron, any questions?
No questions.
And I have no questions, Randy.
And Ginny?
No questions.
Okay, Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
I vote yes.
All
Paul?
votes yes?
Ginny? As do I. Okay, deliberations. Lee, we'll start with you again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a great project. It is a long and narrow lot. I think you've done a great job with fitting both structures in there. I think it meets all the criteria.
Thank you.
I am not voting, but I would be all for it.
Ginny?
Yeah, I agree with Lee. I think that improvement to the western abutter, as was mentioned, and it's just an improvement overall to the whole lot and to that neighborhood. So I agree with you, Mr. Moore, and I think it's a nice project that the homeowners have put forth. Meets our criteria.
Thank you.
Dave Veach?
Yeah, I could, when I went out there, I could clearly see the reason not try to work with the existing building. And it certainly is, it's a great, nice design, nice and real improvement, good use of the lot. And it's certainly not substantially more detrimental in the neighborhood. It's an improvement and meets our other criteria. I'll support it.
And Dave Nixon?
Well, with the elimination of the cupola, I'm 100% for it.
And Ed?
No, I have no issues. I'm familiar with Tom's work and his designs, and in particular, I've seen a lot of his capes in and around the Cape, and I think it's going to be a nice addition to the neighborhood.
Yep. Steve?
I think it's a very good project. It's kind of a shame that that existing house got to the condition that it is in. But, this looks like a great way to replace it. You're improving some of the setbacks. I think the neighbors will be happy. I think it's a nice project.
Yep. And Paul?
It's certainly not hard to be substantially more detrimental than it's there. I mean, it's in tough shape, very tough shape.
Even I go.
But I think the project looks very good, and it certainly meets our criteria.
Right. And I agree with all my colleagues, so Paul?
I will move to approve the application as submitted. I guess the question is conditions. What's your plan in terms of construction, Tom, do you know?
I believe they're looking to start as soon as they can.
Okay. Well, I think, given the confined area that you're dealing with and the proximity of neighbors, I would move to approve with the conditions, our standard conditions, of all construction activity and vehicles would be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Does that work for you, sir?
Yep.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
I vote yes.
And
All votes yes?
I vote yes.
as do I. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good luck. All right, last but not least, we have application 24-078, Greg Butler and Heather Butler, 2022 Family Trust for 485 Shore Road. Sarah?
Application number 24-078, Greg F. Butler, 2022 Family Trust, and Heather R. Butler, 2022 Family Trust, care of Terrence J. Hurry Esquire, 15 Cape Lane, Brewster, Mass. 02631. Owner of property located at 485 Shore Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16G, Block 3, Lot A1. The applicant seeks to construct an elevated stairway and landings under Section 4A3A on an access easement to which they are a party located at 500 Shore Road. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Section 8D2B of the Chatham Protected Bylaw. This was continued from August 8th, 2024.
Welcome. Please just state your name.
Thank you. Christopher Senni. I'm an attorney. I live in Brewster and have a small land use practice. I represent the applicant, Greg and Heather Butler. You have met my associate, TJ Hurry. And when you convened this matter the first time on August 8th, my associate TJ was here. TJ has left my firm, and so I'm stepping in to finish this matter. And I'm glad to be here this afternoon and take you through some legal arguments that were raised during that first meeting by two attorneys for the owners of 500 Shore Road. I'm joined today by my client, Heather Butler, and also engineer Don Bracken. Don will come up, but I didn't have him come up right away because it will take me a few minutes to go through some of the legal arguments that were raised. Then I'll sit down and you can have Don go over the engineering for this beach access structure that my clients are applying for.
And you'll be going over the criteria, I take it? Because that's what's most important to us.
Yes, yes. I actually represent 4 homeowners that are neighbors in a 10-lot subdivision that was created in 1984. Up on the screen, you see this 10-lot subdivision. 6 of the lots are on the water side of Shore Road, and 4 of the lots, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, in the upper left there, did not have direct frontage on Aunt Lydia's Cove. Their street is called Aunt Lydia's Way, and when this subdivision was created, the developer wanted to make sure that the 4 lots across the street would have some access to the beach. So Lot 5, which is the top lot on the shore side, was burdened by an easement, a 10-foot wide access easement, pedestrian access easement, to allow the 4 owners to go across that lot to get down to the beach. You'll see that the access easement is actually to the north of that lot, the northern edge, but the developer thought better about that before deeding any properties. And in all of the deeds to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, this was corrected. Even though the subdivision plan shows the 10-foot easement to the north side, in the deeds it says, notwithstanding that, it's on the south side. So that's where the recorded easement is. And the idea here is that these 4 lots across the street would have a little bit greater value if they had their own access. It did render Lot 5 perhaps a little bit less valuable because other people would be walking across the edge of their property to get down to the beach. So the 4 owners of 1, 2, 3, and 4 are Greg and Heather Butler, who's here today and who is the official applicant. We have John and Susan Perry in the next lot, Lot 2, Jeffrey and Danielle Either in the Lot 3, and David Sheeran in Lot 4. The deeds to lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 read as follows. Together with the benefit of a 10-foot wide easement over Lot 5 on said plan for pedestrian access to Aunt Lydia's Cove. And the deed to Lot 5 says said lot is subject to a 10-foot wide easement reserving for the benefit of the owners of lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 on said plan the easement for pedestrian access to Aunt Lydia's Cove. This is actually how an easement is created. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a document recorded on the land records that's titled easement. It can be encompassed within deeds. And together with means you're benefited, and subject to means you're burdened by the easement. So the history here is that the owner of Lot 5, who is represented by Attorney Litchfield and Attorney Zager, both of whom spoke on August 8th, sought from the Conservation Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals permission to build a structure to facilitate access to the beach. This is caused by worsening erosion on the embankment, and both your board and the Conservation Commission approved that application. We appeared at those meetings. We did not object and did not appeal, but we had suggested that maybe we work together so that only one easement access structure is built and we share it. And we even offered to move our easement out of sight, down the hill a bit, but turn left and join with where they wanted to put their access structure, and that was refused. So that led to our applying for applications to both you and the Conservation Commission. We are still in front of the commission. We were supposed to go there yesterday, and one commission member whose vote will be needed was going to be absent. So I was invited to request a continuation. That was granted, and we'll be back in front of the commission on October 9th. We're here because there are two sections in the bylaws that are triggered. One has to do with the Conservancy Overlay District, and that is section 4A3A. And under this protective overlay zone, which is really overlaid where people do access resources like the beach, and it's designed to make sure that a special permit will be needed if you want to do things in or to get to those resources. And it specifically mentions catwalks, piers, ramps, stairs, unpaved trails, boat shelters, fences, wildlife management shelters, footbridges, observation decks. So it is a bylaw section that's intended to make sure your board is comfortable with the way someone is going to be in this very delicate environment. It's very special. Those uses don't have to adhere to the normal setbacks, like a building setback. They can be close to the property line, just like a driveway can. So it distinguishes itself from, say, a building or a barn. A barn would be an accessory use that would have to regard the setbacks. But these, under this zoning provision, a special provision for special permits for this kind of use, you don't need to observe the setbacks. And the other section that's triggered is just your general section that gives you the power to hear applications for special permits. Those are both in the notice, and they are the two sections that we believe apply. On August 8th, I have watched the videotape of that session, so I understand what took place there. Bill Litchfield presented a novel argument, and so did Attorney Zager. Again, they represent Stephen and Stacy Brierton, who own that top lot, Lot 5. And Bill's argument is that this structure is an accessory use or building, and he pointed both the commission and your board to the first definition in the definition section, which is a definition of accessory use and building. It doesn't say structure, it just says building. And there it is said that we want accessory structures to be on the property where there is the principal use, or by special permit you could go off the premises to an unimproved lot by special permit. I don't think either of those apply. I don't think that definition applies here. I think this is much more appropriately considered under the Conservancy Overlay District. I don't think a beach access is a use or a structure in the zoning sense. I think it's almost like a driveway. If a driveway was going over a resource area and you needed to improve a small bridge over a resource and the commission said it was okay, you would build that bridge, and that would be part of your access, coming and going to and from your home. That would not be a use, even though we use our driveways for accessing, and it wouldn't be a building. A building would have a roof on top of it. So I think this is a bit of a red herring. I will say that in my September 6th memo, which I submitted to the building commissioner, I think I got it wrong. And I started going down this path, and I started claiming, yes, we can comply with that. But then I thought more about it, and I thought, I don't think this applies at all. And I wrote a second memo, September 24th, and I said, I just don't think this is an accessory use or building at all. Attorney Zager had a different novel argument. He said that because 4 property owners will use this structure, this beach access structure, this is a multi-family use in a single-family zone. And I don't think that's true at all. I think when we're talking about access, it's different than talking about whether this is one dwelling unit or multiple dwelling units. So again, I don't think these 2 legal arguments, which did throw a real wrench into the process, the hearing on August 8th, carry much weight. I do have one example that I think will help. In 2007, your board approved a special permit for a beach access stairway that was shared by 2 homes. It was on Sea Mist Lane. This goes back to 2007. I'm showing you just a copy of a plan that is recorded in a deed. And what you have here, you have 2 existing dwellings, an application to your board to allow a structure to gain access to the beach, and an easement area that would allow Lot 85 to use it as well. And the interesting thing here is that the applicant applied under the same 2 provisions of the zoning bylaw that we have applied under and did not submit an application for a special permit as an accessory use or structure, even though one homeowner is using a beach access structure that is not on the lot. And your board wrote some language that is very helpful here. The board members reviewed the criteria for the granting of a special permit and found that the request met the criteria. Specifically, the board members found that the site was adequate and suitable for the proposed project. The property contained an existing footpath over the coastal bank, which was in a state of erosion. That's the situation here. The board members found that the installation of the stairway would eliminate the footpath and eliminate the erosion process. The board members found that no negative impact upon view or vistas associated with the proposal. The board found that the conservation oversight and elimination of erosion on the coastal bank, the proposal represented an improvement to existing conditions. That's what is happening here. This embankment is very steep. It is eroding. We had wanted to have just one structure, but the Briartons refused that. So each of us is entitled, we by virtue of our 10-foot wide access easement, the Briartons by virtue of the fact that they own Lot 5, to access the beach. So in 2007, you looked at a similar situation where you've got a homeowner in a home getting permits from your board where the structure is not going to be on their property, it's going to be on another property, and that property has a home on it. It's the same situation. Now here we have 4 homes and not 1 home, but if I think it helps us get comfortable with my position, which is this is not an accessory use or building, and it's not a multi-family use in a single family zone. So I offer that. I can put these in the record if you'd like, but this was an application that I think has great similarity that you approved in 2007. There are 4 other ways in which the Briartons and their council have tried to object to what we're doing. One is that we don't have standing because we're just easement holders. And they raised that pretty vigorously in front of the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission sought advice from legal counsel and also sought advice from the DEP. The DEP wrote back to the Conservation Commission and said, we treat easement holders as if they are owners of the land for permitting purposes. And I believe legal counsel also gave an opinion that you have standing to prosecute this application. The Briartons have said they will not allow any changes in their fences. So there's a pool here on this property, and pool safety is a real issue. There are fences that keep people from inadvertently going into the pool. And these fences, there are 2 fences that actually block our easement. And thank you for putting this up. For decades, the way the 4 homeowners have accessed the beach is that they are confronted partway in by a fence blocking the easement, and they go around that and through a gate, and then come back to the easement and walk further, and then they are confronted with a second gate, and they again go around and come back to the easement and go down to the beach. we've offered what we think is a better proposal. On the next slide, I think you'll see our suggestion is we stay within our easement. We will pay the cost to build a new fence that connects the two existing fences, and we will have a clear path within our easement, and pool safety is enhanced because under the current condition, we can get to that pool. There's no fence blocking us or children that might come to the beach with us, whereas under this proposal, it will be safer, and it will also provide more screening and more separation. It will keep us further from the Brereton's. And you will see on the next slide a close-up of our plan. You can see the fence we propose connecting to the other fences, and it says remove section of fencing. So we would like to remove the sections of fencing that block the easement, but put a brand-new fence that will ensure pool safety. This has been refused by the Breretons. I have said to you in writing in my September 24th letter that we will not touch any fences or structures within the easement without either the permission of the Breretons or an order from the court. So if you approve this project, it is not going to open the door to self-help. We will not use self-help. There's a legal system that can sort out the legal claims here, and I assure you that we are looking for an approval, but we will respect that at the moment, the landowner is blocking our access. I would like to show you just a few photographs. As my clients cross the street, sorry. As my clients cross the street, Shore Road, to get to the other side, they first come to this arch. And that arch has been there for decades. And the reason that is in the middle of the hedge is that it is acknowledged that we walk on this easement. These orange stakes show the middle of the 10-foot wide easement. And you can see that we walk along and we come to a section of fence that we can't get through because there's no gate. We go to the left, we go through that fence, and then back to the easement area. And then we come along and we come to a second fence, and we have to again circumvent to get back. We have to come through here and circumvent to get back to our easement. So our proposal, I think, is better for the Breretons and for us because it keeps us more separated. I'm going to wrap up here. I've taken too much time on this. I know legal counsel may have weighed in. I know the building commissioner may have thoughts on these tricky legal questions. I'm sorry to take you through that much. I know you'd be much more interested in what Don will present you as far as our design is concerned. So I'll stop now and let Don come to the podium.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Don Bracken, Bracken Engineering. We did review some of the construction of the stairway at the last meeting, but to refresh your memories, I'll just quickly go through some of the highlights on the design. The stairway itself is 133 feet long, in total length 4 feet wide. The last section is made of aluminum, so it can be removed during the winter or during a projected storm event. The bank area has been recently stabilized on number 500. As was mentioned, we're going through the conservation process that was continued from yesterday. An update on that, they requested some additional planting plans and more detailed information on what was going to be on the ground surface underneath the stairway and so forth. The plan itself, there is a 3-foot setback from the property line to the stairway in the zoning, as indicated on the plan. As you can see on the southerly property line, we're proposing to be 3.5 feet off that property line, which results in about a 2.5-foot setback along the northerly edge of the easement itself. The construction will be all wood except for the footing system. The footing system is going to be screwed in aluminum helical piers, so there won't be any concrete or much hand digging to install that. Being as environmentally sensitive as we can be. Again, we talked about the fence. If you look at our current plan, it was at that point it was still up in the air, so we don't show on our engineering plan anyway the details of the final fence location. I think that summarizes actually the engineering part of it anyway. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Or does that conclude your application, counsel?
Madam Chair, that's all we have. We're here to answer any questions that the board might have, and we know there's probably comments that may be coming from Bill and Adam, and we're anxious to have you
So you went through the criteria last time, so you want to waive that for this time?
Yes, and the criteria is the same as I read to you from the 2007 special
So
permit.
we don't have, precedent here. I mean, it's interesting, but we're not bound to whatever happened in 2007.
Right.
At all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, TJ
I
did.
was only in the kindergarten in 2007.
Yes, my associate TJ did go through the criteria that
Yeah.
we have to meet. It's a suitable project, it's good for the environment, it doesn't interfere with views or vistas, and I think we do meet the criteria of the
Okay.
bylaw
All right.
section that
I
applies.
just wanted to make sure you had a chance to address that.
Thank you.
All right, so is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please make it known. Seeing none, I will read no, I won't read the correspondence because it was just from Attorney Senni, and he's already had, that's okay with you? If I don't read it, I assume, so I'm going to stick with that. Now, is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against the application or has a specific question? I see Attorney Litchfield approaching.
Attorney Zager, I am on Teams. I represent the Briarton's Family Trust, and I'm here with Mr. Litchfield, but he will present first.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Steve and Stacy Briarton, who own the property, as you know, and obviously Adam is with me here today. We are, of course, aware of the easement and always have been. That, however, isn't really before you today. As you know, the special permit being sought isn't to be considered under the rubric of substantial detriment. Rather, it requires a finding that the use will not be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood, and critically, that the use involved will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw, which provides explicitly that accessory uses have to be in the same lot as the primary use. Based on the criteria and the plain language of the bylaw, the special permit can't be granted and instead requires variance. In reviewing the criteria, I think you can readily find that the site at 10 feet wide is not adequate, that it may have a negative impact on views and vistas, and that it could well create noise and litter. And since the Conservation Commission hasn't concluded its review, we know nothing about the sufficiency of the mitigation, perhaps because there isn't room for any or sufficient area for mitigation. And with a proposal like this, I would think you would ordinarily want a determination from conservation, particularly whereas here, as Mr. Senni just said, some additional planting is apparently proposed. That, however, is up to you. The real issue here is the plain language of the bylaw, that is the meaning of its words. This isn't through the looking glass where I can make a word mean whatever I want it to mean. Rather, our bylaw says that all words in this bylaw carry their customary meanings. I recognize, as do you, that our bylaw has its flaws and inconsistencies, but on this matter, its words are clear. 2C1 says that accessory uses include boathouses, swimming pools, tennis courts, and similar accessory structures. Stairs, like catwalks, are obviously similar accessory structures. They're subordinate to the main use, which is a residence. And the bylaw in 2B1 defines accessory use of building as something customarily subordinate to the principal use or building located on the same lot, except as the footnote. And as you know, the footnote says that the accessory uses shall be located in the same lot, except that ZBA may grant a special permit to locate such a use or structure on an unimproved lot. So a little bit of history. Until 1990, all accessory structures had to be on the same lot as the principal use. At the annual town meeting of 1990, the planning board recommended a change, which it acknowledged was, quote, a relaxing of zoning regulations, close quote, to allow for accessory structures and uses on vacant lots, but only with a special permit and only on unimproved lots. I confirmed the history, or my recollection, by reviewing the planning board's 1990 report and assessing the matter with some of the then town staff. My recollection of the purpose and intent of the change was that the principal lot and the vacant lot had to be in common ownership. Acknowledging that I was hanging around at the 1990 town meeting admits my age. And given my age, I wanted to check my recollection. So with the invaluable central permitting coordinated assistance, I was able to obtain the relevant minutes from the 1990 planning board hearings in 1989, actually. And on the second page of the first part of the handout I gave you, the planning board minutes note that, quote, this proposal would allow accessory uses on adjacent lots under the same ownership and allow special permit to be granted by ZBA for an accessory use on a separate unimproved lot.
I just want to give you a warning that you're almost up with time.
I understand that.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My friend, Mr. Senni, had 25 minutes, and I recognize I'm approaching 5. If you would give me a little bit of additional grace, I would appreciate it to point out these important points.
How much grace are you looking for?
Until you get tired of listening to me.
All right, I want to ask the board about that, because we have a rule. It's in our rules, it's written, it's advertised, that is a 5-minute limit on people with comments. So let's just go through the board and take a vote. David Veach, what do you think? And how many minutes would you provide, if any?
Given the circumstances, I could see doubling the amount of time that allotted to 10 minutes.
What do you think, Ed Acton?
I'm fine with, as long as it takes.
As long as it takes. What do you think, Mr.
Yeah, I think in light of the amount of time that Mr. Senni took, it's only fair that Mr. Litchfield have an equal amount of time.
What do you think, Paul?
Well, I agree. I think it's a interesting issue, and it's a difficult issue, and it may not be resolved by us totally, but I think we should go ahead and hear what the arguments are.
And Lee?
I agree.
And Steve?
I think he should have equal time.
And Jenny?
I agree with Mr. Veach that maybe double the time, but I don't agree it should be equal because Mr. Senni was the applicant and Mr. Litchfield, we normally give joining commentary a time limit.
I'm also going to go with the 5 minutes, so that looks like it's 3-2 on the voters. So we'll give you another 5 minutes, and we're going to give you just 1 minute back that we just took of your time.
appreciate
So
that,
if we can
and I will
start the
try-
clock at 6 minutes, that's how we're going to do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll try to be brief. The 5th page of the handout that I gave you, again, planning board minutes for this change, says the amendment would allow such uses to be located on an abutting lot in the same ownership or by special permit on an unimproved lot in the same ownership. If you look at the maps, which are on the second attachment, the last page is Billings Road. That is a prime example of what the planning board was trying to allow, allowing people who owned lots in common ownership with their houses on the landward side or vacant lots on the south side to put stairways on them with the approval of this board. Plainly, 500 Shore Road is not a vacant lot. It's improved with the Briarton's home. To suggest that the easement is a separate lot is contrary to our bylaw, as well as common sense, and also to what my brother just said, because he acknowledged it was a 10-lot subdivision, not 10 lots, 11 making the easement making the 11th lot. Bylaw makes plain, now that we have the minutes of the planning board, that this case is not something which can be granted a special permit. I'm aware of town council's comment that the applicants, quote, appear to have the requisite color of title to apply for the special permit. And based on that language, I understand, of course, why some people don't like lawyers. But I also think we understand that the ability to apply for relief differs from it being granted. Moreover, Mr. Tallerman did not have the rationale as explained in the planning board minutes for the 1990 change. This isn't about 4A, 3A, which sets parameters for structures in conservancy districts, but only where other requirements are met. And it certainly isn't about easements or cases decided in other communities that don't have our bylaw. The Farber case cited in the memo of September 6 is the first page of the second part of the handout. And as you can see, all of those lots across the south side of Linnell Lane are vacant. It would be a curious, and parenthetically, I'm intimately familiar with the CMIS, which is now the Bertuzzi property, totally different circumstances in that case. It would be a curious reading of the bylaw, I think, and more than a stretch to determine somehow the differences between the principal use and a principal use somehow legitimizes the request, especially now that we know what the planning board intended and what the voters were told in 1990. It is my belief, and I think it is correct, that to grant the special permit would be to ignore the other essential findings that you have to make, that the special permit can be granted when it is found to be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the bylaw. We now know what the 1990 change was designed to allow: an accessory structure on the same lot where the applicant had a house, or on a vacant lot also owned by the ownership. That doesn't apply here. I thank the board for its grace in providing me the additional time.
Thank you. The person online, if you could state your name.
Yes, my name is Adam Zager from Choate Hall and Stewart in Boston, and I represent the Briarton's Family Trust in this matter. Thank you for allowing us to appear. This case is not about easement law, or it's not about deeded rights or the history. It's solely a question of the Chatham Protected Bylaw. And I don't think this is a novel argument that's being raised. When I took a look at it and was asked to take a look at it, in fact, it jumped right out. I mean, it's a fundamental premise that accessory uses must be located on the same lot or on another unimproved lot that's owned by the primary lot owner. So that's all that matters. And the easement here was created in 1994. At that time, the Chatham Protected Bylaw was even more restrictive than it is today. It didn't even allow accessory uses to be located on other lots, even if they were unimproved, which means that the easement that's being discussed here actually is invalid. It doesn't even qualify as a pre-existing non-conforming use. I'd also like to point out that it is in fact a use. If you look at the very provision that Chris Senni cited, Section 3A, when it talks about special permit uses, and again, words matter. It lists, it's right there, stairs. It says it right there in the bylaw. And really, the positions that they've taken, that their easement area constitutes a separate lot, it just flies in the face of common logic. This accessory use provision was designed to have uses separate and away from structures where other folks were living, and it wasn't ever contemplated that it would be like this. Just for instance, if their interpretation was correct, the Briartons could allow others to use this stairway. Now there's 4 families, but maybe it could be 5, maybe it could be 6. An owner of a lot could create several different access easements down the embankment and grant easement rights, and potentially you could have, if not 2, here they're asking for 2, but you could have 3, 4, 5 sets of stairs that somebody could ask for. And I think that's not what was ever intended, and I think that's what would be the result of this special permit that's being requested today. There'd be setback lines across every property in town. And I don't think that the good news here is that I don't think the ZBA has to concern itself with making difficult calls like this about the number of stairs that could be located on a property, how many people could use them, because this accessory use provision that the town wisely adopted, it says exactly what it should say, and keep these accessory uses, off of other lots that have been improved. And it's very clear that this was what was intended in the bylaw, and we think that it really prevents the special permit from being granted. It would go completely against the purpose and intent of the bylaw in trying to keep these uses apart from one another. And we think that there's no other way that it can be interpreted The 2007 case, if you think about it, there's only one case that's been mentioned where this may have been done before, but it appears to be a situation where you had two homeowners who were cooperating to build a set of stairs. Well, of course, nobody looked and checked to see what the bylaw said. And, we've taken a look now, and we think it does provide a lot of clarity here, that this is just not something that's allowed under the special permit that's being requested. And again, even if you did get to the point where you were looking at criteria for a special permit, you've got an easement area now that, it's been blocked off. It's been barely used. And you're talking about putting in an access stair for 4 families. You're talking about storing heavy equipment on the Briarton's property, the stair, the bottom steel portion of the stairs. The proposal would be to store it on the Briarton's property all winter. You're talking about a forced alteration of the Briarton's fence that's been there for 20 years. You're talking about now 4 additional families walking down to the beach. They don't have beach rights. They do not. This easement does not give them beach access rights. Easement law is irrelevant here, but you're going to put 4 additional families down on the beach. This is a private beach area. It's a quiet beach area in on a sensitive coastal area and a coastal dune. And we think this would just set a terrible precedent that would open up all sorts of questions to what extent should the ZBA, be allowing this type of use as an accessory use on another person's lot. And fortunately, again, you go back to the answer that you just don't do it. That's not what the bylaw provides. That's the very purpose of the accessory use provision. And we think that ends the debate. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I appreciate working with you on this. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go out of order a little bit and ask the building commissioner, do you think this application for a special permit is appropriately before us today?
Based on the correspondence from town council, I say yes, it is.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add about this?
I don't, it's a very unique situation. I mean, I don't think it was ever intended for this type of situation to arise, so the bylaw can't predict every scenario. We look back 10 years on beach stairs that were permitted through special permit, and they were all under 4A, 3A. And, if it doesn't meet the definition of accessory use or building, then maybe it's not an accessory use on this lot because they don't own the lot. There's a lot of factors involved here. I think there are a lot of legal issues here, but as far as what town council has advised, and it hasn't been released yet, but he said it was properly before the board, and I would tend to agree with him.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions from the board. David Nixon.
This is tough. It's really tough. We have 2 arguments that are extremely well-researched, and I suspect I'm speaking for more than just myself to say, that's over my head. It really is. I think I'm a reasonable guy, and I can listen to arguments and make some sense out of it, but it comes in rapid succession, and this is legal, and that's legal, and all this kind of stuff. It's I've got the impression that no matter what we decide, it's going to end up in some court someday, somehow, which doesn't mean we shouldn't make a decision. But I'll be damned if I know what that decision should be. I just don't know. And I look to Paul and Randy as our legal representatives to ourselves for a little guidance, I think. So I know I'm kind of passing the buck here, but I'm really stuck. I'm really stuck.
So before I pass the buck to Paul, I want to go back to online just to double check if I recognized everybody, because there seems to be a group of people online. I just want to make sure if anybody else wanted to speak for or against, I'm going to go ahead and waive the rules with that. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken yet that wishes to speak either for or against this application? No? Okay, then you can just bystand. Very good. And now I'm going to pass the buck to Paul. Questions and comments?
Well, I'm wondering if we should give an opportunity to the applicant's counsel to respond to the memorandum that's been submitted by Mr. Litchfield just
So
today.
rebuttal?
By way of rebuttal.
All right, would you like to do that, counsel? Yes, sir. Okay, very good.
Thank you very much. In terms of the standards, Attorney Litchfield mentioned detriment to the neighborhood, 10 feet is not wide enough, noise and litter, view and vistas, and the Conservation Commission has not completed their work. He didn't mention how use of an easement that's been of record since 1984, which burdens his client's property, is a detriment to the neighborhood. These are 4 families that will be using the beach access way the way other beach access ways are used. There were no details there about how this would be a detriment. The example I gave you of 60 C Miss Lane, that easement is 6 feet wide. So I don't know that the argument that 10 feet wide is not sufficient is a good argument. Noise and litter, nothing was mentioned. I mean, when people walk down an easement, those are people there, and if you didn't have that easement on your property, they wouldn't be there. But there's no indication that this is going to be unusual noise. This is not, there's no deck in the middle of this walkway. There's no place to sit. There are no benches. People won't be hanging out here. They'll be using this to get down to the beach and back up. Views and vistas, if you've been out to the property, I don't see how use of this easement at the far south side of the property could interfere with any of those spectacular views. And that the Conservation Commission has not finished, that's always the case. I mean, these things go in parallel, and sometimes one board finishes before the other. If your board would prefer to wait until the Conservation Commission has either granted an order of conditions or not, that's fine with my client. In terms of the argument that is being made by Attorney Litchfield, the section of the bylaw doesn't have the word structure. It has the words accessory use or building. A building is defined as a structure having a roof supported by columns or by walls and intended for shelter, housing, or enclosure of people. This is not a building. It's just not a building. So then the question is this a use? Now, we use our driveways, we walk around our property, we access, those are not uses in a zoning sense. A use in a zoning sense is a real functional use that needs to be regulated. Access is not generally regulated. It's just access. We have easements and rights of way, and we use those. It's not really something that is ordinarily the subject of zoning review. And here, when you have an argument between 2 zoning bylaw provisions, and one is very general and one is very specific, the specific one controls. And I can give you a case that I was involved in where this appeals court reversed the lower court and said, yes, you've got a specific bylaw that addresses this. Here we have a specific bylaw that addresses this type of structure, which is intended to facilitate access in the Conservancy Overlay Zone. That's all this is. This is not a zoning, it's not a building. The definition section that Attorney Litchfield points to does not say structure. It says use or building. And the word use in this case is in a zoning sense. So I understand that 2 attorneys are making what I do think are creative and novel arguments. But you have granted these beach access structures in many locations. We have a deeded right. I know that the Brereton's might wish that this easement could go away. And that might be a windfall for them if it could, because they paid less for their property because it's encumbered. At the same time, my client's property is benefited by coming together with the right to cross this land to access the beach. And the Brereton's would just as soon our clients lose the value of that part of their homes. And I think this is what it is. It's an attempt to try to make an easement go away that's been of record and is in the Brereton's deed. It's not like it's in some long ago deed that you have to dig through the records. Every one of the parties in front of you has this provision in the deed. So I think it's creative. Bill threw me for a loop. When I looked at the tape, I thought, oh my goodness, what's he's talking about here? But as I dug deeper, I thought, this is a red herring. It's not a real legal argument. Now, I understand that you're not lawyers and you're not town attorneys, and you might be worried that a court's going to have to take a look at this. I don't know that this is necessarily going to go to court. We have tried repeatedly to sit down and talk with the Brereton's and try to work this out. But I hope you will look at this and make a decision based on what you believe. You have the building commissioner who's advising you. And I'm sorry you're in this position where you've got lawyers who are arguing in front of you, but it is what it is, and we hope you'll apply your best thinking to it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to, yep.
So we do have someone.
All right, so
David Sharon.
I'm going to go to David Sharon in 1 minute, but just out of fairness, Attorney Zager, I did give Attorney Litchfield, because this board allowed for him to have some extra time. You went over on your first one, so I'm going to give you 3 minutes. That's how I'm going to exercise my discretion. And I will say that we have town council's opinion, and that's, in my opinion, what we're bound by. Some of us are attorneys, but we're not attorneys for the town, and we're not attorneys for the zoning board. And we have an attorney's opinion that this is properly before us. So given that statement, go ahead.
My understanding, and Attorney Litchfield, I believe, can speak to this as well, is that town council opined that the applicants have color of law to appear before the board. But our understanding also, frankly, that doesn't address the question that we had, which is what is the law? Is a special permit permissible for an accessory use? Is this an accessory use? I don't think the town council had addressed any of those questions. I would hope that the board would make any opinion that he's rendered.
I'm just going to interrupt you because I don't know if you saw.
It hasn't been released.
Oh, well, he did specifically say that they properly applied for it under the right under the right portion of the bylaw. I don't know if that helps. I know it probably hurts, but that's how it is.
I think it helped because I don't think that addresses the question that is before you, which is whether this accessory use provision in your bylaw applies when somebody seeks a permit in the Conservancy District. If you read the two regulations, I think it is very clear nothing in this Conservancy District overrides or says any requirements that might apply to special permits elsewhere in the bylaw don't apply here. It just says, notwithstanding any other provision of the bylaw, the following uses require a special permit. It's imposing a requirement. And so to read that provision as to be making another very important provision of the zoning bylaw more lenient, I think is incorrect. And I don't think that's novel or new. I think this is something that jumped right out at us. And I think that, again, Section 3 specifically it's called special permit uses. And one of those is the construction of stairs, because it's very different in nature than just a pedestrian path. That's why it's called out as a use that way. So again, I don't want to rehash things that have already been discussed. I don't want to take more of the board's time. I appreciate it very much. But we don't think that this is something that's allowed. And as to the criteria, again, I thought I had made clear. I mean, we think this is going to be very substantial from what's there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Sharon, please
Sharon.
How are you involved in this?
499 Shore Road. I'm one of the owners involved.
Can you take off your hat just to please some of our
Sorry.
more conservative people?
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Apologies. Appreciate it. I'm not a lawyer. I'll keep this brief, well within the 5 minutes. And apologies for my tardiness and your earlier invite to speak on behalf of the application. I just want to share, me and my family have been residents of Chatham for over 30 years and been at 499 Shore Road. And growing up, it was a pleasure to be able to use Mrs. Geary's archway, which she built for us, to use the easements, which I used growing up to be able to enjoy the view and the access that afforded me and my family. And so when We tried to use it a couple of years ago, and then the pathway was overgrown. It was much more difficult to get down to the actual beach. I was very excited by the opportunity to go forward with this project, and so I just want to share that as one of the many reasons for this effort, as it's helpful. So from a non-legal perspective, just providing a resident's voice in the matter.
So I just want to ask you, you used to be able to get down that path?
Yes.
Years ago?
Correct.
And
Yes. And now it got very overgrown, just wasn't intended to, and so the stairs would help alleviate that burden.
do you think there's any other way to get down besides steps if you're not Spider-Man?
No, not if you're not Spider-Man, especially
Yeah.
with how the coast has changed over the years.
Yeah, so would you agree that there's no other way to get down for a human being
Correct.
right now? Really?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
Okay.
now with a significant effort.
even that. All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to go back to questions from the board, I think. Lee?
Well, I will agree. This is way over my head, but I am somewhat familiar with easements. I happen to have one in a family home that I own with my brother, and there is an easement there. And we do have neighbors, 3 other houses, that have access to that easement, and they walk down the side of our property. I mean, it doesn't bother us at all. And they have access to the water. They bring kayaks down, whatever they choose to do. So I do know what an easement is. But in this case, this easement, to what does it allow access? Where are they? This easement allows access to what? To the bushes? To the embankment? To the beach? To the water? That's my question.
We're going to find out. Sarah has all the answers.
So the exact language in the deed, and I believe this is the Butler's deed, it says, together with the benefit of a 10-foot wide easement over Lot 5 on said plan for pedestrian access to Aunt Lydia's Cove.
That is the water.
And it's the water.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Besides that? Okay. Steve, questions?
I guess I have a couple of questions, but I'm not sure who's going to answer them. It has a lot to do with maintenance. If this stair is built, who's going to maintain it over the years? Whose responsibility is it to maintain it over the years if
Yeah.
something breaks?
I'm going to ask that Attorney Senni, is I pronouncing your name correct? Can you stay at the podium? Because that's the usual practice here, so that you'd be able to
I'll stay at the
answer
podium. Yes, I
questions
will.
for your application?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Thank
did
you for,
Yeah.
may I? Thank you for your question. I have drafted a beach access maintenance agreement, which my clients are studying, and I could give a copy to you tonight. I have it with me if you want to see it, but I haven't received feedback from all of my clients. I recognize that we are going to need to satisfy the town that the 4 property owners who are going to pay to install and own this beach access structure are going to have to be obligated to maintain it in good and safe condition and in accordance with all town requirements. That language is in the draft that I have prepared. So if you'd like that draft, I can give it to you with the caveat that I don't have much feedback on it yet. But I recognize that, and we do not mind at all if you see fit to grant the special permit to condition it
Right.
upon such a recorded beach access maintenance agreement.
Okay.
Now,
I was going to suggest that, too. Yeah.
Now, apparently it's being used by the 4 families that are to the south, I guess, of Shore Road. Suppose one of those families move and somebody else moves in there and doesn't want to be any part of this. So then the expense and the maintenance is going to fall on the remaining 3.
It's a serious obligation in a recorded instrument. There is a mechanism for making decisions. It requires a supermajority of 3 of the 4. The language is very specific. If the 4th owner votes against repainting or resurfacing something, but the other three say this is necessary to keep it in good and safe repair and to keep it in compliance with town requirements, that person still has to contribute their 25%, and it must be done. It's awfully hard to structure this with 4. If there were only 3, it would be easy just to make it a majority. But I looked at this situation, I thought, well, you know, a vote of 2 to 2 is going to be problematic, so I wrote it in a particular way. But this is also something that can be looked at by town attorney. Even though this is going to be a private agreement, we want the town to know that these 4 owners are very serious about good upkeep and maintenance of this structure. If the chair wants, I can provide a copy.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Whose insurance policy is this going to fall under? If somebody falls going down the stairs, if there's storm damage, who insures this?
The provisions of this draft require liability insurance and property damage insurance.
Split between the 4?
All expenses are split between the 4 property owners, yes.
And we run into a problem is if someone moves or doesn't want to participate in this.
Well, the buyer is going to see this beach access maintenance agreement on record and will know, I am taking title to this property subject to that obligation. It's like any other restrictive covenant. When you buy a property that is subject to a recorded restriction, you are buying it subject to those terms. So this will run with the land, and it will be a permanent requirement to maintain this structure.
Okay. And then the bottom of the stair is removable. Where is that going to be stored in the winter months?
This has been a complaint of the owner of 500 Shore Road. They do not want us to lift the aluminum stairs up and lash it down to the secure structure. But this is how these access structures are managed. You bring that aluminum structure up, you lash it down securely, and you leave it there for the off-season, and then in the spring you move it back. They have argued, you have no right to store heavy equipment on our property, and we will not allow this. So I don't know where we are with that, but our proposal is very clear. We are proposing to do exactly what you just approved for the Brereton's, which is move that aluminum stair up and lash it down.
Yeah, but that's being moved onto their property. It's their removable stair going onto their property. This is someone else's removable stair potentially going on their property.
It's not going to be stored outside the easement. And you have to keep in mind that this property is subject to the rights in land that multiple people have. We have the right to this easement, and we are going to lift it up and bring it to the structure, our structure within our easement, and lash it down for the winter. If the Breretons want to go to court and say, you have no right to store, your easement didn't say storage, okay? That's a question that might get in front of a judge, but that's the way these access structures are used, and we're proposing to use it the same way.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Jenny, questions?
Yes, I have a few. I think this maybe is Mr. Zager. You made a lot of comments about accessory structure or accessory structure, accessory use. Question, is the Briarton staircase considered an accessory use? Was that?
Yes, it is, and it was permitted under Section 3 of the Conservancy bylaw, but the reason why that was permissible again is because they are the owner of the property. It's that accessory uses are allowed when they're on the same lot. When they're on another lot, that's when it becomes a problem, and you need a special permit, and you're not eligible for the special permit if that other lot is improved, which is the situation that we have here.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you confirm the Briartons purchased their home in 2022? Can someone confirm that?
Their counsel might do better, but there's a field card at the assessor's office which says,
Yeah.
yes, they purchased their property in 2022.
Okay. And the Butlers purchased their property in 2020?
Yes,
And the date of this easement is 1984?
yes.
Okay. That's what I thought too. I had a question which Lee answered, or Lee's question, which answered the access to what? A view of the water or access to the water? So you're saying it's to Aunt Lydia's Cove, which is the water. Okay.
Yes.
I too had a question. On this site plan, it talks about the removable aluminum stairs. It says in parentheses, install over the those logs. Is that right? Or it sounds like what you're saying, Mr. Senni, is they'll fold over and be latched onto the railings. That's what I typically see.
I'll let Don.
Yeah, I can, there still will be some supports that go over that area where the rolls are. And very similar to their stairway design, you know, we specified that those anchors have to work between the rolls, not to interfere with the rolls that are there. But I'd like to also address another point you just brought up and was brought up earlier, as to where the actual easement goes. You know, the language just says to Lydia's Cove, but the plan that created the easement shows it specifically to the mean high water mark. So that's what we had shown on our plan.
Okay.
I know there's some questions about, well, what happens once they get down there? They, obviously, everyone has the rights for access between mean high water and mean low water. So yeah, I'm sure they would exercise those rights once they get to the base of the
Yeah,
easement.
and it's shown there
Yeah.
too. That's, yes. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So I think, Mr. Senni, you said that the Briartons have the same removable stair configuration as what the easement holders are asking for.
That's what I believe. Am I correct?
I can't confirm that. I can't recall
Okay.
that right off the bat.
Okay.
Our engineer
Yeah.
didn't design that one, but
Yeah.
I believe that that is the normal practice, that the aluminum stair comes lifted up and secured down for the off-season.
Secured though to the stairs, not on their property.
Not on their property.
So
The-
I'm not sure why they're asserting that, but also do you have any insight into what is being referred to with heavy equipment being down there? I thought I read somewhere that there's no heavy equipment being proposed.
Oh, during construction or with regular maintenance, all equipment is hand equipment brought in as needed and taken out when it's no longer needed. We're not storing any material on site.
Okay,
The email I received from Attorney Zager objecting to the aluminum stair, that same sentence talks about, so you can't store heavy equipment. So I believe the complaint about storing heavy equipment relates to that aluminum stair.
okay, which doesn't sound like it applies.
Doesn't sound like,
Like it applies, there's no heavy equipment required to flip that over.
no, it's not
Yeah.
sorry, it's not really a piece of equipment, it's a part of the structure that's removable so that.
Right, there are other ones down there like that. I know what you're referring to. I just was confused by the statement that it was going to require storage. And then the wording is a little confusing on the site plan where it says install over the, sounds like it's part of the land, not the stairs, but
Can you clarify that?
What are you referring to as installed over? You talking about those, the rolls again, or?
yeah, the rolls. That's what it says on the site plan. And maybe was the confusion. Yeah, it's right,
Yeah,
it's right at the bottom of the stairs.
yeah. Yeah, so those screws will go between the rolls,
The
and then the
screws,
the rolls are covered with sand and vegetated.
Right.
So, as you can see, we only anticipate one set of supports in that area where the
Yeah.
rolls are. Yeah.
I think what was confusing to me, maybe it was removable aluminum stairs. You're not removing the stairs, you're just,
Well, just that last section, yeah, from that point over, from where the last helical screw set is right there.
right.
Seaward,
But they're
yeah.
flipped back, or they're attached to the.
Oh, no, they're
existing
not, they're not hinged or flipped
they're
back.
not, okay.
I mean, there will be a way to hook them in to the brace on the last section,
Okay.
and then they'll be lifted up and carried off,
Okay,
yeah.
but still within the easement, that's the key
Still,
question.
correct.
Okay.
And they're gonna be narrow enough so that they will fit between the
Okay.
stairway, yeah.
Last question, did we decide we were voting on, are we to weigh in on this, that you talked about? Okay, so I just wanted to clarify.
Happy to address that. I wanted you to understand what's happening today.
Yeah.
We circumvent the blockage by going outside of the easement, and we've done that for a long time. Courts have dealt with that when parties approach an easement in such a way that the actual use does not line up with the easement itself. and the parties have participated in that equally and have agreed to it, that then the court can rule that the easement is moved. We don't want it moved. We want to discontinue circumventing a blockage. That's our proposal, because we would like to keep all of our traffic within the 10-foot easement. But for decades now, there has been that circumvention. I just wanted you to understand that our plan shows that we are going to stay within the 10-foot easement. Our plan is to remove the gate sections that block our way and put in a new section of fence at our cost, which connects the other two fences. That's our proposal, but I promise you, we will not remove anything that we don't have permission to remove, either from the Brereton's or from a court. But we want a particular plan approved, which is before you, and that's our approach. We just want to stay completely along the southern edge.
But that's not before us, anything about any of this blockage.
It isn't.
We're going to just talk about steps and whether you can do it or not.
Correct. And actually, the structure itself, which is really the focus of your approval, doesn't start until after that second gate
Yeah,
or
so
second blockage.
You're going to worry about that part.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's all after
Right.
the two blockages. So yes, I may have given you more information than you needed, but I did want to explain the circumstances at present.
Okay.
Thank you, that's all I have.
No questions, Paul?
I think I understand the position that you're in. It seems to me that overall, we have issues with respect to the use of the easement, which are beyond our scope in the sense that they would go to court, whether you're going around fences or not going around fences, and they may well go to court with respect to the question of whether the interpretation which Mr. Litchfield is presenting is controlling, or whether your interpretation is controlling. It seems to me that from our viewpoint, we should be looking at it from the idea of, well, if in fact a stairway is within the purview of what you have in terms of an easement and is recognized by the court as such, then let's make a decision as to whether a special permit is appropriate or not appropriate. And I don't see a need for you to come back at that point and apply for the special permit if in fact the court has provided for access to be available to you. There are interesting arguments, as you say, and I think they've been presented on both sides. It's of some significance, perhaps, that the report of the planning board, which refers to the accessory use on an unimproved lot, says in the same ownership, but that language I don't think is in the bylaw. And I guess the question then becomes, was it intentionally left out of the bylaw? I don't know the answer to that, but that might be in some way controlling on the question of whether that's an issue. I think in looking at the overall concept of the special permit, we've been provided with pretty much all of the information that we needed from the initial hearing to make a determination as to whether or not the mitigation that we think is appropriate should be done. Maybe others have questions about how much mitigation should be added to it. But I think we're in a position to make a ruling with respect to whether the special permit is appropriate or not appropriate, and leave up to the court or the parties resolution of the question of whether the fencing needs to be changed or the access actually needs to be specified in some other way. So that's my view.
Okay, so did you have any questions at all, though?
I think that answers my questions. The only other question I would have would be if we were asked Bill Litchfield whether he sees any appropriate inference that can be drawn from the fact that although the planning board recommended an accessory use on an unimproved lot in the same ownership, but that language is not in the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Litchfield.
Thank you, Mr. Semple. The only inference that I would suggest could be drawn from that relates to the special permit, the requirement to grant a special permit that the purpose and intent of the bylaw be followed. I recognize the words aren't in the bylaw, which is why I went back to the planning board minutes from 1989, 6 months before the change was made. The purpose and intent was stated by the drafters, which were the planning board. The purpose and intent was that the lots be in common ownership. That, I think, ties into the provision in our bylaw that says a special permit in a case like this can only be granted when it's found to be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the bylaw. It doesn't say not in strict non-compliance, but in harmony with the purpose and the intent. And I think you can glean the purpose and intent from the planning board minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Litchfield.
As I say, I think that decision ultimately may be made by a court as opposed to us.
Right. David Nixon, do you have any other questions? No? Ed, questions?
I would like to say something during deliberations.
Of course.
Yeah, well, I have a few questions, yeah.
Yes.
A few questions. I think maybe that last, I don't know, I didn't have a chance to read this, and I can't read it while we're in the middle of all of this. So, I guess my first, so I might want to ask Bill Litchfield about this. But separately from that, and I'm not sure how this necessarily bears on our decision, but I'm curious because Attorney Senni's been using, he used the term beach access in talking about the agreement that you've drawn up and things. And so I'm in the wording of the easement seems to indicate to the waters, or, you know, to Aunt Lydia's Cove. And I'm curious, and you may not be able to answer, someone should be able to answer. So, and the engineers something about the easement going to the mean high water line. Does the Briarton's deed go to mean high water or to the waters of Aunt Lydia's Cove?
We're going to get that answer from Sarah in a second.
Yeah.
From our clerk.
If you want to keep going, I will find out
All
that
right.
information.
Well, I'm just curious because I mean, you know, because we're using the term beach access, talking about these stairs, but if they own the beach, if it's to mean low water, well, then probably the colonial ordinances would prevail about the access being for fishing, fouling, or navigation. And so I'm just curious how that, what's the, yeah,
I do know, based on the subdivision plan,
yeah,
the eastern edge of Lot 5 is defined by mean high water. So the property that the Brereton's bought is bounded by mean high water.
mean high water. So then the intertidal area is open
They don't
to,
own it.
yeah, they don't own it, okay. All right, so I mean, it may involve some level of beach access, but it's not necessarily, the easement just goes to the mean high water line.
Yes, and it may be that I mistitled the management agreement. And I
Well,
could
that's-
certainly
yeah.
say Aunt Lydia's Cove access management agreement instead of beach.
I would suggest that because it's kind of, I mean, in all the other words that we're tossing around here,
Yeah.
I'm not sure we want to use beach access necessarily.
I agree, I
Okay.
agree.
And then, so that was my question with regard to those things. Bill, could, again, just to help, I haven't been able to really follow this in looking at the notes, because I was, in considering what that footnote says about lots and unimproved lots and things. Just walk me through it again. What the notes say, what's your interpretation of that, of the change from what the bylaw said prior to this change and following it.
The planning board stated it, that the proposed change would allow uses, accessory uses, on adjacent lots under the same ownership, and allow a special permit to be granted by ZBA for an accessory use on an unimproved lot in the same ownership. And again, if you look at the maps, the first one, the top one, is the Linnell Lane litigation, which Mr. Senni referenced.
Yeah.
Gould and McAdams, the two on the left, or the left and the middle, weren't a party to that litigation, but all three, Gould, McAdams, and Farber, went to Conservation and the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they got permission for catwalks and stairs, approximately where I've drawn them in on the south side of Linnell Lane.
Yeah.
The intent of the bylaw, the best one I could come up with, was on the second page of the maps, Billings Lane, where all of the houses on the north side, with one exception, there are no houses on the south side of Billings Lane.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those lots are owned, on the waterside lots are owned by the neighbors on the north side, some are not. But, so some could be considered separate lots, but on the original subdivision plan for this subdivision from 1950 or whenever it was, they were all lots. So for instance, I don't know who owns 48 Billings Road, but the owner of 48 also owns the vacant lot on the south side of the street. And that, under the change in the prior to the bylaws change, they couldn't do anything on that lot.
They couldn't do anything with that
Couldn't do
unimproved
anything on the lot.
I see.
As a result of the change, they could apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit, a catwalk, theoretically a tennis court, which would now be underwater, but that's a separate issue. So that was the result of the change, and the board said that it made for better land use on smaller lots.
Okay.
So it would allow stairs on lots that were either vacant or in common ownership with your approval.
And then when the change was made to the bylaw, I think this was what Paul was referencing, the wording "in the same ownership" did not, I didn't go through and reference that, that did not make it into
That's not in the bylaw, and that's what I want, that's why I wanted to convince myself that my memory was correct, and that's why we went back to the planning board minutes, which indicates that was the purpose and intent, which of course is what you're governed by.
So this may have no bearing on it whatsoever, but if reading through that provision in the bylaw, I was, because it doesn't say anything about contiguous lots either. So I'm just curious, if, maybe give me an opinion. If I have property down on Lower Main Street, and if I also own a lot on elsewhere on Main Street, not contiguous, not nearby, that I might be able to apply for a special permit to put a garage on it, on an unimproved lot?
On an unimproved lot,
Because
the
the same-
answer is yes. And in the planning board discussion, I realize you haven't had a chance to read 5 pages of notes from discussions 30
Yeah.
years ago. But in fact, it speaks to that point in particular. And if you look at our bylaw, there's a reference to a special town meeting from October of 1989, and that was when they dealt with garages on otherwise unimproved or vacant lots. So
Okay.
yes, you could
You
build.
could, I could reasonably, or I could apply to the
could
zoning board of
apply.
appeals.
Exactly.
To have an accessory structure stand alone on another lot.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm just curious. I'm still as confused as ever. Those are the questions that I have at this
But
point.
as council has opined, this application is under the steps one.
Right, it's not under the, it's under
Just wanna bring you back to that.
the section 3.
Yeah, it's under that. He
stairs.
said it's under that properly. And I just want to tell Attorney Zager that if someone asks you a question, counsel, I will recognize you, but at this juncture, that would be the only condition under which I would recognize you. So I know you have your hand up.
Could I just finish up briefly with Mr.
Please.
Veach?
Yes.
You're absolutely correct, and there is no question that a finding under 4.3a or 4B3a is required. Our point is that that is not the exclusive requirement of the bylaw.
Thank you. I think it's my turn for questions. First of all, you're applying for a 4-foot wide steps? Is that accurate?
I'd have to ask the client. I don't think there's any objection to that.
Approve, I think you would, yes? 3 foot? Isn't that the minimum?
3 foot inside, he's saying that it was 4 feet outside to outside. So you've got the rails, guardrails on either side, that's gonna eat up some room.
So what's the minimum compared to what they're applying for?
Well, I mean, 3 feet is standard
Yeah, okay.
for inside, for a hallway or something like that. This is obviously a different type of structure.
So they're applying for a foot larger than the minimum? That's what I'm understanding? Am I wrong?
Well, we're dealing with walking area, what you have for space to walk and navigate a walkway. If you had someone coming the other way and you're going down, so he said he's at 3.4 feet inside the inside.
Okay, I did see that, so 3.4.
Which is like around 5 inches, so we'd have to reduce it by about 5 inches to get it to 3 feet.
Oh, okay, I understand now. I'm not asking you to do it, I'm just wondering. Because we have approved ones that are a little bit more narrow than what you're applying for, and I just wanted to see what kind of leeway we had with that. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
I'll
Paul?
vote yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations.
Thank you.
David Nixon, you go first.
Well, it's really difficult, but I think, and I'm trying to be fair, fair in the big wide world. An easement that has been in existence for so long should be able to be used by those people who purchased that easement when they purchased their property. So unless I saw something or heard something that would steer me away from that, and I think Attorney Senni has laid all kinds of conditions out about, well, we're going to change the fence, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I mean, these folks have done everything, and they tried, as we all wanted, that when we were approving what was approved on this lot, we really wanted to see something, hey, why don't you get together? But, okay, the owner of the property wasn't interested in any way, shape, or form. So be it. And I think we should approve it and see where it leads.
Okay, Ed?
Well, I really wish I was voting tonight because I have strong feelings about this. I think we should approve it. I think this is an attempt to limit someone's rights. Having grown up on the Cape, you're seeing this again and again, where people are trying to limit access to beaches. I think this easement's been in place for quite a while. I think the owners of the property probably benefited when they purchased the property because there was an easement across it. And now there's an attempt to eliminate that, and I don't agree with that. I think these stairs should be approved just like their stairs were approved.
Dave Veach?
Well, I had actually thought about it and raising the question whether we wanted to wait for Conscom to give me more time to deliberate about this, but I don't think I'm in agreement with my two colleagues. I think that I'm not sure in how this is all came about. I'm not. It seems to me that the purpose and intent of the bylaw doesn't involve trying to ignore easement agreements necessarily, or purpose intent would not have been to try to negate easements. I find that's but I also know sometimes the law doesn't totally always track with intentions or what was thought to be the case. But just as, trying to simplify my own thinking, I'm in agreement with Dave and Ed. The easement has been there for a significant period of time. The bank has eroded, and I guess apparently at one time there was an ability to climb up and down the bank as it was then. And the erosion of the bank has necessitated the creation of stairs, not just on this easement, but the property owner and the adjacent property owner and other property owners in the area. And so to me, this seems to be a reasonable request under those circumstances. Be better for the environment than what we've got now. Somebody's trying to figure out how to climb up and down that, to do a Spider-Man up and down that bank now. That's not a good option. And so, given what I think is correct or right, and what I see common sense wise, I'm in favor of their ability to provide to do this, to provide that access that they have the right, the easement for.
Okay, thank you. Paul, deliberations.
Well, I think the comments that have been made are relevant. The applicants have tried to be as reasonable as they can be, I think, given the circumstances, in trying to deal with the easement and assert the rights that they've been given under their deed. And I think that in general, that's the way it should be. It seems to me that the overall access conditions that we've heard are the same kind of conditions we've had with respect to the other stairways going down. And I'm confident that the Conservation Commission can continue to impose the correct mitigation issues that need to be applied. I think that the condition that we should be adding to any special permit that we provide is the removable portion of the stairs would be removed annually from December 1 through May 1st to be consistent with what we did with the other stairways. But other than that, it seems to me that they meet the special permit conditions. And if a court at some point comes to a conclusion that the applicant, the opposition to the applicants is the appropriate way to deal with it, then the special permit may well go through the board. But I think that's the appropriate way to handle it.
Thank you. Lee, deliberations?
Yeah, so I agree with my colleagues regarding the easements. I think you can't ignore them. They've been there. The homeowners and buyers knew about them. And it's something you kind of have to deal with. I'm actually very much in favor of the legal agreement that Attorney Sunny is proposing regarding maintenance and insurance, because that will help make things clear, at least for the near time. So I agree. I think it meets requirement, our criteria for a special permit, and from a conservation perspective, I think it is a wise choice. So I'm not voting, but I would vote in favor.
And Steve?
Well, I think this is kind of a difficult situation, and it might be putting neighbors against neighbors here, but there is an easement. The folks at 500 know that it exists. The four families across the street have a right to use their easement, and apparently they have the right to use it in the way that they see fit. basically theirs to use. It sounds like they haven't been able to use it easily recently, and it is a very environmentally sensitive area. There's erosion in the area all over. I'm not really crazy about having that many stairs over there, but they do have a right, I think, to install one, and it would help the environment in that area. So I guess I would probably support it. But I think it's going to bring a host of problems in the future about who's going to maintain it. You know, if all the four families don't stay in agreement, I think it's going to bring other problems. But for now, I think it's a workable solution.
Thank you. Jenny?
Yeah, I actually don't think it's that difficult. I too have strong feelings about this, and I was one of the members that voted no on the previous stairs, but that was because of suitability of site. And I specifically said at that hearing with respect to the property at 500 Shore Road that while I didn't think any of those sites were really suitable when we were talking about 486 and 500 back in May, I specifically said I think the part of my reason for not being in favor of 500 in May was because I didn't agree that the placement of the stairs being in the center of the highest point of the bank was appropriate, and that they should move them over to the side where the easement holder's property was already staked. We were all aware of the easement holders. Every single one of us mentioned the easement holders. I rewatched the tape at that May hearing. And so I specifically said, I think they should move them over and share them with the neighbors. I think a lot of us thought that. So even with saying that, though, I still voted no on 500 because I was primarily concerned and had argued for consideration of suitability of site. But the supermajority of the board voted at that time to let the stairs go in. And there were comments by attorneys at that hearing and board members about what was positive about stairs being on the, here's one, and with regard to conservation. If we don't build a staircase, people will cut their own path down, and that's why conservation likes it, because it protects the bank. So I know we have conservation's final determination coming up, but I don't see why they wouldn't like it. They're on tape saying that they do like the stairs. So I think that because every one of the board members knew about and had mentioned the easement holders' interest in and desire for those stairs, I don't see how to Ed's point, I don't see how you deny these stairs when they clearly, as I mentioned before in questions, the Briartons purchased their home in 2022. To Mr. Senni's point, they knew it was encumbered with an easement. They knew that it was subject to an easement that's been around since the early 80s. And then the Butlers purchased it in 2020, to Lee's point, knowing it had a positive aspect, and they probably paid a premium because of the easement, as well as the other other three across the road. So we'll see how this goes, the following, areas with respect to the legal aspects of some of this, but I'm in support of the stairs.
Oh, thank you. So I was in support of the stairs for 500, and I'm going to support this too. I'm not crazy about putting things on an eroding bank, but I am crazy about the idea of people being able to access Lydia's Cove when they paid to do that. So I too feel blood boiling when people are trying to deny access to the beach, especially when it's been here, this access has been here since 1984. So I'm going to vote for Ed on that, so he can be comforted to know. I do think there is an issue with how this is all going to turn out, but we're here for two reasons. One, to make sure that an application is properly before us, and we've gotten note from council that it is, and our building commissioner says that it is, so that's A. And B, does it meet the permit criteria? And it does. So that's all our business. The other stuff is not our business, and so we can all rest assured that it was not complicated today for us, because we had two things to make sure of, and we made sure of them. So, Paul?
I will move to approve the application as submitted with the condition that the removable portion of the stairs shall be removed annually from December 1st through May 1st.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
Well,
All votes yes.
Jenny?
I vote yes.
As do I, it's unanimous. You're not up here to accept your award of the fact that we have allowed your application, counsel, but we did, and good luck to you and your clients.
Thank you.
And with that,
I will move to adjourn.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Ed?
Ed Acton votes yes.
Yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Lee votes yes.
Steve?
Steve votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I, and what time is it?
5:16 PM.
Not so bad, huh? Yep. Who predicted 5:15?